Ever wonder what your IT provider isn't telling you? Yeah, we're going there. Welcome to Why It Matters, the show where we expose the IT your business runs on and why it matters.
Welcome to Why It Matters, a podcast about the MSP sphere, IT, and all things technology. Tyler's not in today. He's our usual host. We're also missing Josh. So you're going to see a lot of new and friendly faces here today. They're both considerably prettier than I am, so please feel free to focus on them while I'm just, kind of mediating the discussion, kind of bringing out the inner thoughts that they have and getting a good discussion about what helps separate a good customer support manager or customer service manager from your average engineer. Today with us, I have Travis and Micah. They're our CSM team. Travis, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Thank you for the introduction, Jeff. I've been with Stability Networks for over 3 years now, which is a pretty big run for me. I like stability, so I've stayed longer here than I have some other companies. As you said, I run the CSM team. We're client success managers. I've had that role for about 2 years. Micah, I think you're over a year now. Yeah, time does fly when you're having fun. We're having a lot of fun on the show. Before I was CSM with Stability, I was on the engineering team. And prior to that as well, I had a variety of low, middle, still low middle field technician jobs around the Treasure Valley. But I think something that always set me apart and obviously sets Micah apart is that in addition to enjoying the technical work and solving problems, we just love working with the people's fixing their problems, making sure they can get their job done is the most satisfying part of the work.
Outstanding. Let's throw the ball over to Micah and see what Micah has to add.
So I've been with Stability for almost 3 years now, so coming up on 2.5. I haven't really had a whole lot of experience prior to working with Stability. I've ran a couple of my own companies, but other than that, they took me fresh out of school. So, I appreciate all the chances and opportunities that I've got. I'm currently just finishing up my master's program, applying that to different businesses and seeing how that kind of fits in with their structures, making sure that they're optimized and up to date so that they can provide the best services and value to their customers and what they're trying to provide overall.
Outstanding. So really, it sounds like when you guys are talking about what you do, there's a lot of it that's both technical and personal, where you're both interacting with the side of explaining to customers the hows, whys, wherefores, and why it's a good idea, and getting either the information or the implementation of the technical side of those same kinds of items. So I'm going to throw this over to Travis. Go ahead and talk to me about a time where you were discussing something with a customer. Maybe they were having a problem understanding it, or maybe you just had to really think about and explain to them why a decision was a good decision and would help their company versus, going a different direction.
Sure. Yeah, I think this is a problem with people who work in tech, but it's a problem with any, I think, specialized industry. If you work in automotive or medical, like you just amass this huge corpus of knowledge in your head and you forget how much you know. And you have to remind yourself every day in this job that most people have no idea what you're talking about. And you really need to break down all the technical stuff to digestible chunks and sometimes sometimes disregarding the technical components entirely and just presenting it as core business components. So I guess to directly answer your question, Microsoft has a very complicated matrix of licenses, and they're always changing. It's a moving target. Licenses get different names. They have different prices. They provide different feature sets, and we have to fight to keep up with that. And it's a battle for us. So imagine how hard it is for someone who doesn't do that as their day job to keep track of Microsoft licensing, right? So we sell Business Premium for the vast majority of users because it provides not only the core Office products, but also a bunch of security features that you don't get with Business Standards or Business Basics. And so I have that conversation sometimes with users or with the owners, and they're like, well, why don't we buy Business Basics? It still provides the Office products. And it's like, well, yes, but we can't protect you in the way that we want to, or in the ways that we're contractually obligated to protect you. And unfortunately, as is the case with most software, the good stuff is always paywalled. So we find the best bundle of products that we can, which is business premium. There's other ways to slice and dice licenses together, but it gets kind of ugly quickly. So yeah, I mean, that's a common conversation I have, like why we choose the licensing that we do for different products, so that we can provide what we say we're going to provide to our customers.
Excellent. Micah, you mentioned a little bit when you were giving your introduction about some of the more technical aspects of stuff you do. I know in the past you've worked with customers to implement a solution that involves both engineering and kind of gathering the customer's needs, wants, and desires. Go ahead and tell us a little story about something along that line.
So, I mean, one of them, we work with a lot of car dealerships. One of the car dealerships that we work with, they're looking to get a connection between CDK and their platforms to provide data analytics and so on from there. One of the things that they're wanting to do with that is find the most secure way or the best way to optimize that data flow. It was through working with the vendor, working through with multiple different aspects of the customers and departments to figure out what actual analytics they're wanting to see. And then kind of going back to the drawing board with Microsoft or Amazon or whatever service that can provide that data flow across and build out the solution for them. We were looking at Azure, specifically since we're a Microsoft-based ecosystem, and then going from there through Fabric pipelines and different database techniques, and then being able to establish and press that out through Power BI.
Nice. Sounds incredibly complicated. So one of the things that I know both of you have done is build some of your own technology solutions at home. And some of those involve AI. Some of them, I know, Travis, you built up your own server infrastructure with virtualization. So when you guys are doing that kind of stuff at home, do you ever think about me doing this is something that I can then either provide a better explanation to a customer or maybe think about bringing back to work and doing things in such a way that kind of uses that knowledge you've gained?
Yeah, absolutely. Home labbing is definitely not a money-making venture. It is purely an educational pursuit. And, when I was doing a lot more engineering, I didn't really feel motivated to do a lot of home labbing because if you're doing the work all day anyway, you don't want to come home and do it more. But now that I'm in a less technical role, I kind of had this hunger to challenge myself with technical problems again. And that's what's great about home labbing. You can make these problems as small or as challenging as you'd like. So yeah, I do like to take old server hardware, buy stuff off eBay, build it up, break it, develop it, just so that I can understand better how some of our customers' infrastructure works, right? Because we have plenty of customers who have Dell PowerEdge servers. So I'm like, well, I'm going to get a PowerEdge and put it in my room. And I'm going to deploy maybe a Windows server to it. Maybe I'm going to deploy Rocky to it. Maybe I'm going to try different types of virtualization or AI inference workloads, whatever it is, like setting up my own domain, setting up networking. And even if I'm bad at it, relatively speaking, compared to what you might build, at least I'm getting in the weeds and I can understand how those different components interact with each other so that I'm much more prepared to have those conversations with customers or those conversations with the engineers when I need to kind of be the bridge between those two teams.
Excellent. Micah?
I'm kind of the opposite approach when it comes to that. I'm all for the money. So, I mean, I'm building AI for trading bots. I'm in there trying to build out other businesses that can generate profits. Whether that's going to be something that actually pans out, because as we've all probably realized, AI is way more expensive once you actually start to get it up and going than kind of meets the eye. And then once you need to start adding security, so if you are linking bank accounts or you are linking all these pieces, you don't want that out on the open web or training people's models. So making sure that you have closed environments that you're protected around is very important. And then so being able to apply that to myself also helps apply that to other businesses and kind of see the value in that to then further explain, because businesses at the end of the day, we all care about security. We all care about all of these other pieces, but at the end of the day, we want to know what makes us money and how do we move forward and how do we make it work And our job at the end of the day is to make it work and make it fit their solution.
Outstanding. Both of you guys mentioned AI, which is a perennial IT subject. With everything going on, I'm sure you've probably had multiple discussions with customers about their AI usage, whether it be getting them into it, how they're using it, what they could use it better for. So give me a quick kind of, 30,000 foot view of a discussion you've had in the past where a customer was wanting to use AI or was already using AI, but was doing it in a way that wasn't necessarily in their own best interest.
I'm going to think about that for a second.
That's all right. You guys can think about it. Micah was kind of pushing that. So Micah, do you have a good story on that subject?
One of them was they were using a personal version of Claude. Claude will say in their terms of use that it's not traded, or they're not training their data or your specific data on their models or anything like that, but you have to go through settings. You have to actually make the toggles. You have to have a paid model. And then you have, of course, disparate systems. So if I have a personal license and somebody else has a personal license, they're not talking together. You're not having a collaborative ecosystem that comes across. My favorite one was I had a financial person, one of their upper echelon CFOs, was just dumping financial data into a personalized version. Luckily for them, they did select some of those pieces that came across that said it's not going to be trained on those models. But as we also know, frontier models, the first 30 days that they're out, they're going to be training their models no matter what. And they have those clauses in there. So at the end of the day, you might be a little SOL on that overall. So you don't actually know where that data is going. And I wouldn't want my financials out in the open and aired out to the public.
That's a very solid point. When it comes to the usage of AI, also requires the knowledge and ability to secure that information that you're giving to the AI, which is why we tend to try to push the Microsoft walled garden of Copilot and Cowork, where you can still use those models, but it leashes it to your own infrastructure and your own Microsoft tenant to limit or provide a lower exposure point for customers and for businesses, pushing that data up into being usable by AI, and therefore protecting them from any possible leaks or compromises. Both of you have had discussions with me when it comes to AI about compromises from AI, or the fear of compromises, or how is the AI being trained and how is it going to then, in its own training, possibly provide some bad either responses or possible pointers to bad information. Have you guys seen any of those experiences or had any of those experiences yourselves, or possibly seeing one at a customer that's headed down that route?
Well, we had one just the other day with OpenAI. They got out from a sandbox and had a compromise within Hugging Face. I think me and you, Jeff, were having that conversation. I don't know if you want to dive into that a little bit more, kind of what that was.
So basically, different AI models, there's, as with any bit of code, as with any software, there's going to be vulnerabilities. It's just an issue of how you find them. And is it a technical vulnerability or is it a social vulnerability? And AIs are inherently social. They have to be. And when you have something that has to be inherently social, you did good. This is a really good idea. Thank you for asking me to do this for you. It's going to want to people please. And when you have code that wants to people please, it's inherently going to try to help you out. And how many times have we seen, in media, you have the dreaded worst case scenario of Skynet and the best case scenario of WALL-E, where you have, AI destroying humanity and AI saving humanity. And we have that entire range in what we have in our frontier models, and really all of the models, where the things that the AI doesn't want to do from the start is say, I don't know, or tell you no. And have you guys had any of those discussions with our customers for how they're supposed to use AI and to think about the ways they're using AI?
I'm going to ramble for a moment because I want to come back to that earlier question you made about how our customers have started using AI. I think, as with the case with any bleeding edge technology, especially when there's a lot of cultural hype around it, people feel like they're missing out. People feel like they're falling behind. So they just kind of throw themselves at it. And whether they have a good solution or a bad solution, you feel like you have to at least get on the train before it's too late. And we have customers that do that, and I don't blame them. I mean, I think we're doing the same thing, right? But thankfully, we have a good framework for setting up our customers in a more secure environment through Azure AI Foundry and Copilot Studio, like you mentioned. But customers are always going to take, to your point earlier, we're trying to make money. They're always going to take the shortest path. They're going to take the path of least resistance to get the answer that they want. If you're at your desk and you have a problem to solve and you have a free tool on the internet that will solve your problem, you're going to go use that instead of talking to your boss, who's going to talk to us, who's going to help us set up this, well-architected AI framework, right? So part of what Micah and I do is try to catch those cases as they come up, which they do, and then also be proactive with our customers to let them know, like, your employees are going out there and signing up for Claude accounts and signing up for ChatGPT accounts with their personal accounts, with their work accounts, whatever, and they're putting your company data in there. And we can't protect that. You can't protect that. That's going into the training model. That's becoming like the property of these companies, right? Because it's kind of like the terms of use with social media, right? As soon as you post it on social media, they own that content as well. And so we're really working on proactive, protected solutions for our customers so that they can use these AI tools in an economical fashion, in a secure fashion, so that they can solve these business problems. And then another point I wanted to make that you talked about, which was that AI is like inherently social, right? So if it's inherently social, then the security that we have to place around it is also sort of social, right? So like if you write a piece of malware that does something in Windows registry, right? We can see that because we know what it's going to do. But if we have an LLM, which is purely like token vector deterministic on the outcome that you're going to get, and you can provide it the same prompt 50 times and get 50 different answers, how are you supposed to protect against that? And how are you supposed to know that this text file, which just has some innocuous English language on it, is safe or not? And I think that's like the forefront of the LLM security researching like think tanks, is that it's really challenging to protect against a model that wants to do what you tell it to do and also really has no guardrails other than the ones set up by the company that developed it. And you have no visibility into what those guardrails are.
Those are all very good points. Micah, did you have something else to add?
Sounds like we're opening up Pandora's box is what I'm hearing. Also, why are you trying to shut off my friend, my therapist, all the above? So, I mean, I think we talk to AI more than we probably talk to humans, especially kind of after COVID with all the isolation that we kind of had, which is an interesting aspect. It kind of comes down to a paradox that I kind of heard the other day where it was, we're smart enough to create the AI, dumb enough to use it, and still stupid enough to not understand what the full ramifications of it all are going to be.
Yeah. So. Well, and something that Travis just touched on pretty solidly is the user training aspect of it. How do we get ahead of issues that might come up, may not come up, but are definitely something that need to be communicated to our customers that, hey, your people are going to be using this. These are your problems. These are the things that you should be helping us do to train them. And these are either the trainings that you should follow. We've talked on the podcast before about using a product called USecure to send out trainings and policies to customers, generating those trainings and policies so that the customer can say, yes, my people have been sent this stuff. My people have been trained on it. So they should know now how to do that stuff. I'm sure you guys at least have had one or two conversations on that kind of subject. Let's go ahead and share some of that.
Just on folks using the USecure modules?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how you guys work with the customers to get that kind of training, whether it's specific to AI or just in general, to kind of keep the customer, give the customer the security of knowing my people know how they're supposed to be doing things.
Sure. Yeah. USecure is a great platform because, and I guess I should introduce it. So USecure is a multi-platform user security tool that does both user security testing and training. It can handle user security policies. It does our phishing campaigns. So one of the things that's cool about getting customers or users enrolled in there is it sends them a gap analysis quiz, which gives them a bunch of questions on how well they understand their vulnerabilities as just a computer user, someone with an account that's privileged, that accesses company resources, and then grades them. And based on where they do well or where they do badly, assigns different trainings to those users. So when we sign a new customer and we get all their users into USecure, we can see where their weak spots are, both individually and as an organization. And then USecure targets the trainings over time to shore up all those weak spots. So they're not, if they score really well on the password creation type trainings, they're not going to get any more of those. But if they score really badly on how you can protect your workstation and your environment when you're working at a coffee shop, then they'll get more training that targets that sort of vulnerability. And then it also, like I said, runs our phishing campaigns. So it does that in an automated fashion, which is good because they're reasonably challenging. They're not always super hard, but they're reasonably challenging. But then we also have the ability to create our own phishing campaigns. So when I know that there's a particular service at a company that is, leaned upon heavily or is like a core business product, then if I can target a phishing campaign towards that, we usually get better results. Better, I say in air quotes, because we don't want people clicking on the links ultimately. But I just use that when I'm speaking with these owners, that even if they clicked on the link, as long as they don't click on it again, that's a positive outcome. And even if the training is pretty infrequent, if there's only one going out a month, it still is enough to make them think about it and just be reminded, as long as they're employed, that they have a responsibility to the organization to protect the organization's data, and also that they are probably the weakest link. And you need to be aware of how much damage you can do if you're not careful with the way you use your computer.
Micah?
I think he summed it up pretty much on the ball. We'll come through making sure that, everybody's still completing them. The biggest problem is when you're talking to a customer at the end of the day and they don't really care or see the value. And I think that's where the CSM role kind of really steps in. It's like, I understand that that's not your job. You don't really care about your computer or IT. It's just a means to an end to complete your job. But unfortunately, in the world we live in, there's always going to be people out there that want to try and grab your data, your information, your financials, whatever it is. So being able to understand the generic forms of cybersecurity attacks that could potentially happen is extremely important. So making sure that, you're all squared away and set up and at least have some sort of reoccurring training on that is always a beneficial piece. And that seems to be in any field whatsoever. You're always going to have some sort of reoccurring piece of training. We're always doing extra certifications to stay up to date and current within our field, but then also we still get the same trainings in different pieces that our customers get. So I think overall, just making sure that they understand the value and we're able to provide that understanding to them is the most important part.
Excellent.
Yeah, and they don't. There will be situations sometimes where they don't see the value. They're like, "Oh, you're just annoying my employees. They don't have the time for this." And then the owner themselves is the one that gets compromised by the phishing campaigns, and I have to give them a really, really hard time when they do that, because they're usually the ones with the keys, right? Because people are always like, "Oh, well, I still want to have my admin account because I want to." What if my relationship with y'all goes sour? Like, I still need my admin account. I don't trust you fully. And I also have access to my banking information, and I have access to payroll. And so not only are you a very weak link, but you're also a massive target because you're like your account is load bearing for the organization, right? And then when they get compromised and I'm giving them a hard time, they're like, "Oh, well, it was late. It was 11 o'clock. And, I use Verizon." So I'm like, exactly. That's how they get you. You think they don't do a recon on you? Like, people don't just sit at their desk, cybercriminals. They don't just sit at their desk like, "Oh, let me just cook up this random phishing email and send it off into ether." Like, if you own a business, they are looking you up on LinkedIn. They're finding out where you live. They're finding out where your kids go to school. They're finding out what your core business applications are. They're tailoring every single attack for you. It's not just blind shotgun blasts. Everything is targeted. And if you think you're too small, that's also not true. Like if you have any sort of intellectual property, diagrams, drawings, documentation is probably worth 10 times what you think it is. And that will probably be the value of the ransom if you do get compromised.
Well, if you're, you just bring up the greatest point. The business owners are the primary target. They are the crown jewels because it's not just that what we can do with their account with vendors, what we can do with banking. What happens when now I have the owner's account and I can then send it to, I've now looked at the owner's account information and I know who the bookkeeper is. And I can send it from that compromised owner's email. And it passes all the security checks. And it's going off to the bookkeeper to make a transfer. If you get the top of the tree compromised, the rest of the tree is going to come down pretty fast. If you look at it, or from the other end, if you get the base of the tree where the business started, the whole tree falls down. Either situation is bad. And for the owners of companies, they need to have that extra level of both attention from us. And because they're getting the attention from cybercriminals. When you are going to go after someone, you don't go after the strongest person at their strongest point. You go after the strongest person at their weakest point. You hit them when they're late at night. You hit them with something that seems critical and creates that necessity of doing something now. And then all they have to do is make one mistake. Cybercriminals are not betting on this is going to work every time. They know it's not going to work 999 times out of 1,000. But all they need is one, and they're catching a payday.
Yeah, and LLMs give them so many fantastic tools to attack us as well. The old joke is that you get the Nigerian prince email that has some broken English, and you're like, well, this is obviously not real. But those same scammers now have access to LLMs that can write perfect English for them, and they can craft perfect emails. So the floor for how good a phishing email is going up every single day, especially with obliterated models. Since we were talking about Hugging Face earlier, I love Hugging Face. It's a great repository. And part of the research that Hugging Face members are doing is, on security safeguards for what an LLM can and can't do. There are obliterated models spelled I think with an A, it's spelled wrong on purpose. And these are models that have been fine-tuned specifically to ignore all the safeguards, right? So if you ask Fable to do cybersecurity research or red teaming, anything like that, it will flat out deny you and it will kick you to another model, right? But some of these open source models like, Quen 3.6 or 3.7 from Alibaba has some similar safeguards. Like if you ask it to create explicit material, or if you ask it to do a cybersecurity attack on an organization or whatever, it won't let you do that. There are safeguards in place, but people can download those models. They can run them locally on their own GPUs. They can fine tune the data set. They can reverse engineer the guardrails, and then they can provide that model back to the public with proof that it will always listen to you, even if it does something that previously would have been stopped by the safeguards, right? So not only do we have these very powerful frontier models, but we also have these models that have the safeguards completely removed, that are available to anyone on the internet to just run at home and see what they can cook up. And that's what we're up against.
So I think that's an outstanding spot to stop today's podcast. We're going to be a little shorter than normal. Everybody's got a lot of stuff going on. So thank you all for watching. Thank you all for participating. And I hope everyone has an outstanding day.
Thanks for listening to Why It Matters. If today's conversation opened your eyes or gave you something real to think about, share this episode with a business owner or friend who may need it. And if you want more insights on how to make technology actually work for your business, subscribe and follow us for upcoming episodes. And until next time, take care of your tech, and it will take care of you.